Hello everybody and welcome to Mortal Kombat!
Dun, 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 dun.
The original
we talk actually about the original games after the GBA port and all the movies.
Alright.
Well, hey. To be fair, the most recent Mortal Kombat movie is
It was good, yeah.
Alright, so Kano, a mercenary thug, extortionist thief, Kano lives a life of crime and injustice. He is a devoted member of the Black Dragon, a dangerous group of cutthroat madmen feared and respected throughout all of crime's inner circles.
No kidding.
So, bad guy, got it.
Alright, so we're doing the original arcade version that was made by John Tobias and Ed Boon. Oh, by the way, order your Mortal Kombat Collector's Edition comic book now.
Yeah.
Offer expires 27 years ago.
Drawn and written by John Tobias himself, so that's cool. Goro lives. Let me read this because this is quick.
Sorry.
The text in this game goes, a 1,000-year-old half-human dragon, Goro, remains undefeated for the past 500 years. He won the title of Grand Champion by defeating Kung Lao, a Shaolin fighting monk. It was during this period that the tournament fell into Shang Tsung's hands and was corrupted.
Who the hell are these characters?
Right, Raiden. The name Raiden is actually that of a deity known as Thunder God. It is rumored that he received a personal invitation by Shang Tsung himself and took the form of a human to compete in the tournament.
Why human? Could he just take it on the
Liu
form
Kang.
of
Once a member of the super secret White Locust Society, Liu Kang left the organization in order to represent Shaolin temples in the tournament. Kang is strong in his beliefs and despises Shang Tsung. And that's it. Now Scorpion. Like Sub-Zero, Scorpion's true name and origin are not known. He has shown from time to time distrust and hatred towards Sub-Zero between ninjas. This is usually a sign of opposing class. Watch the recent animated film if you want to know more.
It's called Scorpion's Revenge for a reason.
Sub-Zero. The actual name or identity of this warrior is unknown. However, based on the markings of his uniform, it is believed he belongs to the Lin Kuei, a legendary clan of Chinese ninja, which will become more prominent in later games. Sonya Blade. Sonya is a member of the top US Special Forces unit. Her team was hot on the trail of Kano's Black Dragon organization. They followed them to an uncharted island where they were ambushed by Shang Tsung's personal arm, aka the island where Mortal Kombat takes
huge
place.
offense at her recent actress.
Johnny Cage. A martial arts superstar trained by great masters from around the world. Cage uses his talents on the big screen. He is the current box office champ and stars such movies as Dragon Fist and Dragon Fist 2, as well as the award-winning Southern Violence.
Southern Violence.
Let's see. Now, if the thing expired in 1993, that would be...
27 years ago.
Alright.
Yeah, 27.
Alright, canon-wise, it's Liu Kang that wins the tournament, so I'll be using Liu Kang.
I
can already hear the...
Liu Kang is the one. Liu Kang wins all 4 of the original tournaments.
Reptile, shut up. Go away.
I can already hear the people booing that you didn't pick Scorpion.
Well, that's the thing, Joe. I'm trying to keep this as canon because canon-wise, Liu Kang wins Mortal Kombat 1 and through 4. So.
Also, everybody picks Scorpion Java because he's Ed Boon's favorite. So let's break the mold.
Yeah,
Doesn't Ed Boon even do the get over here?
Yes, it's a staple from the get-go.
Yes.
Oh yeah, which thankfully the movie did pay respect to.
As you can see, the technology that they used was digitizing live-action actors, which was kind of unprecedented at the time.
Fatality is the key. So
Thank you, go away.
You're probably wondering, who the hell was that? Well, we'll figure it out later.
You know, it's funny seeing Liu Kang beat up Scorpion, considering how in the movie it could not have been more opposite.
Okay. So, well, okay, so basically here's the idea. You know what's the interesting thing? Liu Kang is the one that wins the tournament, but all the other character endings are canon. Yeah, and Liu Kang's fatality in this game is so lame, by the way.
Well, that's because he's the good guy, Pedro, so he wouldn't be so brutal.
Fortunately, starting with Mortal Kombat 2, he'll get a much... fortunately, starting in the second game, he'll get a much better fatality, because that fatality was lame.
When do the friendship
second game.
Yeah.
It was a direct response to the controversies of this game, Whips.
so it was like a parody.
Pretty much.
Alright, you cannot match my speed.
And yes, might as well address the elephant.
But we're not
in the room.
fighting you.
Might as well address the elephant in the room here regarding the ninja sprites here and there. Yes, the ninjas are pretty much recolors. Yes, it has been parodied to high heaven.
Not just that, Joe, but all 3 ninjas in this game are played by the same actor, Richard DeVizio, if I remember correctly.
I think it's the same with the female ninjas later on too.
Yes, very good. You can even tell even by just looking at the sprites even. So,
It's one thing everyone likes to joke about.
well, to be fair, it doesn't really. I'm okay with that. Bottom of the pit, except it's backwards, just for you for a curveball. You're probably wondering, everybody, what the hell is Reptile doing there, and throwing out hints for whatever it is? Well, everybody, you have to understand that this was the first game, so nobody knew who the hell that green ninja was. Reptile is a secret boss in this game, because a common thing with Mortal Kombat is secrets. And those are hints of how you can find Reptile and beat him. And if you beat him, you get a shit ton of points.
It's weird seeing Reptile as a green ninja back in the day.
That's
Ever since it has become his classic costume with the CO classic spell.
it starting with Deadly Alliance. They started having him just show his reptile body rather than try and be disguised as a human ninja. But yeah, this is classic Reptile, whereas you're thinking of modern Reptile.
Of course. Well, to be fair, even Scorpion's Revenge was making a modern Reptile.
Yeah. That's because they wanted to at the very least make sure things are a bit more palatable to the new fans who didn't play these original games.
Not to mention the aesthetics of.
We've already read this. Go ahead.
The aesthetics of Scorpion's Revenge were based on MKX, so Reptile in that game actually had his traditional appearance.
Which is ironic because MKX doesn't happen in the timeline that Scorpion's Revenge is into.
No, Scorpion's Revenge is its own entire canon, pretty much. Because the character, like I mentioned, some characters are alive where they shouldn't be and dead where they shouldn't be at the end of the event.
To talk a bit more,
Pedro said Scorpion's Revenge seems to be taking cues from the first game.
Yeah, it's basically a retelling of the first tournament, aka this game. Basically, it's the same. It even carries the same plot line from the original live-action movie of them going through there on a boat and everything. So, it actually makes sense, Joe, because Ed Boon said he didn't really like the first movie, so it makes sense why they would do that. Go ahead.
But it still, has foreshadowing, quote unquote, elements by having like Quan Chi showing up.
Test your might. So basically, you have to mash the buttons until it goes over the red bar, and boom.
What Yay!
Alright, so to go in a bit into more depth about the behind the scenes in development. Blocking will get you nowhere.
Also, yes, folks, Raiden, a flipping god, is not the final boss.
Alright, so this is the most iconic area of the first game, the pit. Okay, so let me explain something. Yeah, and now we're fighting Raiden. Raiden is a bitch because
I love Raiden's battle cries. They're so stupidly hammy.
Yeah, but anyway, to go a bit more on the backstory, it boils down to this. Basically, Shang Tsung wants to conquer the Earth Realm. And in order to do that, he needs to win the Mortal Kombat. I forgot, Theo. Do they imply in this original game the same storyline that they won 9 tournaments and now this is the 10th one? Or I forgot if.
No, not that I remember, at least.
Okay, never mind. The point is, bottom of the pit. Yeah. The point is, this is a tournament to decide the fate of Earth Realm, and if Liu Kang, Sonya, and Johnny can't win, that means that basically Earth is fucked. Because Kano is working for Shang Tsung, so he's definitely not going to help us despite being an Earthling. So basically, we have to win and defeat Shang Tsung to prevent Earth Realm from being conquered by Shang Tsung. Whether or not he's working with for somebody else or not, we'll get back to this in the second game. Yeah.
Speaking of Mortal Kombat.
Yes, Dwips?
There's supposed to be a new movie coming out in January.
The live-action one, yeah.
Yeah, there's been no trailers.
Wait.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's getting delayed as well.
There's a new live-action Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, remember,
movie?
Joe, we mentioned this a couple of times. Warner Bros. Is officially trying to make a new live-action Mortal Kombat. There we go! Yay!
Yeah, that's the stage fatality. The fun fact, Tale, unlike the games after this game, you don't need to do any kind of button input to do the stage fatality. You just have to uppercut, and that's it. But starting after this game, they changed it so that you have to do the stage fatality has its own unique selection of
input. Yeah.
So I mean, I kind of wish they would have kept this way, because I don't know. Come on, let people at the very least do the stage fatality easily. Come on. But anyway, yeah. So basically, and we already saw the bios of all the characters, so you already know all the main motivations for why each of the characters are entering the tournament. They have their own individual reasons. Kano wants money and power. Liu Kang wants to win for great justice. Right, yeah, and Raiden is a thunder god. However, you must find me to beat me. No shit, reptile. Raiden is a thunder god, so he is immortal. However, in order to be able to participate in this tournament, he, like the bio said, he took a human form and he abandoned his own immortality, so he could, because you can only fight in this tournament if you're mortal, and it's called Mortal Kombat after all. So yeah, that's the basic gist of it. Sonya is here because she's a policeman who's hunting Kano, because Kano. She
has her own personal.
And Johnny Cage is here because he thinks if he wins this tournament, he will help his career, basically. As for Sub-Zero is here, but actually his ending will explain why he came to this tournament to begin with. So I'll wait till we read his ending. As for Scorpion, for those who haven't seen the recent animated film, just to break it down, Sub-Zero killed his family, and he's here for revenge. That's the basic gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
Or did he?
Okay. Well, in the original continuity, he did, Jova. But the basic point is this. Yeah. So John Tobias and Ed Boon were the creators of Mortal Kombat 1. John Tobias doesn't work on Mortal Kombat anymore.
Ed Boon is doing most of it. Is most of it.
Yeah, but Dan Forden is still doing the music to an extent, if I remember correctly. The music of this game was done by Dan Forden. For those, you probably know him as the Whoopee guy that would show up in later games, or the Toasty. Toasty. Yeah, that's where people know him for. So yeah, and the one particular thing that this game, of course, I'm not gonna go into the controversy involving the fatalities, because that story has been told a million times and everybody knows about it already.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, the birth of the ESRB community.
This was only half of the ample.
It was just a night trap.
Yes.
Oh god, Night Trap.
All right,
Can't believe that game got re-released. Also, I love
it's
how
because
Johnny...
Joe, but there's this one person developer called Screaming the Villains who's a big fan of these old games by Digital Pictures, and he took it upon himself to remaster them.
What
and
do you get if you win the Test Your Might challenge?
Points.
Yeah. Remember, it's arcade, so it's all about them points.
It's an arcade game. So
I always thought that with those challenges, if you fail, you get a game.
No.
Anyway, I love how this game implies that Johnny Cage is actually a tougher fight for Liu Kang than the likes of Raiden, Kano, Sonya, and the Sub-Zero.
Also, the mirror matches in this game are a bit lazy, because unlike later games where they give the second character like different set of clothes or something, instead they just make the sprite darker, which is kind of lazy.
They are your shadow.
That's a job. It's not even a shadow. They just literally, made his color darker. Like, literally.
It's just like Shadow Lady from Marvel vs. Capcom.
But yeah, as you can probably see, everybody, despite this game using sprites, it looks very live action-y. That's because they did something similar to what David Perry and his team did with her from Jim and Aladdin. Except instead of using animation, they instead had actual actors, particularly martial artists in the case of Liu Kang's, to actually do all the moves and all of these animations on studio and filmed them all, and used all of that footage and compressed it into sprites. So basically what you're seeing is actual. So think of this as the earliest form of motion capture, basically.
Pretty much. This would inspire also a couple of copycats, like Shaq Fu is kinda inspired by this.
I don't know, Teo. I wouldn't say if that is it's some really
well, not with the same quality, mind you, but it's clear they wanted to replicate this kind of effect.
I can see what Teo means, you know.
Especially because, you know, they had also celebrity to showcase there. Yay!
So, now that we've faced ourselves, what's next?
Endurance.
I'm gonna be skipping the endurance matches because I'm only gonna show one endurance match, Joe, because endurance matches are literally just fighting two of the fighters you've already beaten. You know, so for the sake of, you know, getting on with things, let's just do only one endurance match because, you know, that is the thing. Okay, I'm okay with only one endurance match before Goro, but 3? Come on, like, I get that you have to pad this game out so that it lasts a bit longer, but 3 endurance matches?
Okay, game Pedro.
But yeah, Dan Forden is still composing to this day. Well, not so much. He did like one track for Mortal Kombat 11, but he still did came back or something. But he's still doing stuff in general, so that's cool. But instead talking more about the franchise in general and how it rates to, this is actually, at least at the time, was one of the few Western-developed fighting game. And unfortunately, as a result, probably also due to its more simplistic battle inputs, is viewed kind of like as a joke in the fighting game community. This rarely gets qualified for EVO and other events similar to this franchise, but it has its share of fans in general, even for the more competitive ones, you know, like say Maximilian, for example. It's just that despite the evolution, the more becoming more complex, you know, more growing the beard over time with its presentation and everything, it still didn't manage to gain enough respect, for lack of a better term, to be to still, you know, get itself qualified, at least on a consistent level. Honestly, I forgot even if it at this day it still is the only major of the Western developed fighting games, because most of the others are like Japanese that are alive, Tekken, Street Fighter, Virtua Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Smash Bros, even Power Instinct. Yes, Atlus actually has a fighting game series. But yeah, I think this is still at least the major one.
I'm almost surprised we haven't gotten a Persona and Shin Megami Tensei crossover fighting game.
Okay, to be fair, no, okay, there was Skullgirls, but, you know, with Lab Zero disbanding, that's not much more the case.
Oh yeah, raw scars and all that.
So yeah, this is Goro's lair that we're fighting in right now. Every time you get to the third endurance match, it's always on Goro's lair, specifically for the purpose of Goro showing up right as soon as you finish it. It doesn't even allow. You don't even get to see your icon going from the endurance match to Goro, as a way to, I guess, surprise you. So. In fact, the rest of the game is here because after that, actually, no, never mind. You actually do get to see your icon move from Goro to Shansung.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the fight against Shansung is still in Goro's lair, so while you're at it, might as well just have Shansung show up right after while you're at it. But whatever.
I guess they actually wanted you to breathe for a second.
Yeah, Pedro.
Yes.
So, since you have cheats on, I wonder, how is the difficulty of this arcade version of Mortal Kombat?
It's old school.
It's old school hard. It's Mortal Kombat, especially Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 is flat out cheap because, like, it's. I'm not even kidding you. Hold on. Oh, okay, I forgot. I forgot we were doing round 1 still. Okay, let's just you know, drain all the energy just to get this over with. There you go.
So
hold on, Dibs.
You were saying?
Goro! Oh shit!
Yeah.
Goro was the only character in the game that was not played by live action actor, obviously. Instead,
I can see that.
Looks like he was played by stop motion.
Very good, Joe, but that's because he was. They actually did make a stop motion puppet, and you know, in the good old fashioned style of stop motion animation, that's how created Goro, basically.
This will be used later on, not by the same team, mind you, but of this kind of technique to create another fighting game called Clay Fighter.
And Primal
for the
Rage.
N64, I think.
Primal Rage as well on the arcades.
Yeah, that too.
Also use that technique.
So Mortal Kombat Advance, that was based off the third game.
Yes, my personal favorite. I know that a lot of people claim 2 is the best of the classic games, but I don't really like how cheap it is.
So I'm guessing it must have pained you to see how bad.
Well, it's because... No, that's the thing, Dubs. It's because Mortal Kombat... don't get me wrong. All Mortal Kombat games, the classic ones at least, have this thing where the AI does, you know, get used to the way you fight and start, you know, adapting as it should. The problem is
kind of interesting.
Well, that's how. Well, it kind of is how it should be when you get right down to it. Otherwise, it would become incredibly easy to exploit the AI. The point, the problem, Job, is that Mortal Kombat 2. I don't know. I have no idea what the fuck they were thinking with Mortal Kombat 2, because in Mortal Kombat 2 they go completely out of their way to make it so that the character, your enemy character, always. It's like he always knows exactly what move you're gonna make. And it gets to a point where to give you an idea, Joe, like even if I give myself infinite credits in the Mortal Kombat arcade collection that came out back in 2011, you know, I just can't for the life of me even beat that game. But just to give you an idea, there's a trophy for just beating the game. I don't even have to beat it like in any specific way. I just have to beat it just to get the final trophy. But I can't because I literally get to a point where no matter how many times I continue, I can't get past all the characters because the AI is just so unbelievably cheap. And it basically boils down to this, Joe. Here's how it is for Mortal Kombat 2, Jova. You either master it or you lose. It's that simple.
So basically, Mortal Kombat Advance took Mortal Kombat 3 but gave it Mortal Kombat 2 engine.
I don't know about that, Dibs.
I mean that's the thing. When I played Mortal Kombat Advance, it's like I said before. I mean, the AI. I mean, no matter what difficulty, the AI there's no in between. The AI is either so cheap that nothing you could do will give you any fair chance of beating it, or the enemy's a complete walkover.
It boils down to unfortunately for Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, especially Ultimate, yeah. For Mortal Kombat 3 and its Ultimate version, they did fortunately address those issues. In fact, Ed Boon himself has said that Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is his personal favorite of the classic Mortal Kombat games. And yeah, so good for you, Ed, because I still don't understand why the hell the fans insist that Mortal Kombat 3 sucks and 2 is amazing, but that's whatever.
Alright, the Shang Tsung gimmick is that he's a shapeshifter, more like he can assume the shape and, you know, potential moves of fighters that he wants.
And for some reason in my run, Shang Tsung really likes turning into Goro.
Cool story, bro. Yes, he still has his own set of moves, though.
Yeah.
It must be quite interesting to play as.
Well, Jova, in that case, I recommend you try to check out Mortal Kombat Trilogy for the PlayStation. That's my personal favorite of the classic Mortal Kombat games because it's literally all of the fighters from the first 3 games in one game. You can play as all of them. It's literally the story of Mortal Kombat 3, but told with all characters that have ever been in the franchise. So it's kind of interesting how they tried to, you know, insert characters into that story that weren't in it to begin with. It is kind of an interesting thing how they go about it. Like for example, I haven't actually played much of 4 back in the day, so I can't really.
It has my favorite fatality in the franchise. In it, there's that.
Which one?
One of the ones of Quan Chi. Basically, it puts you down, rips your leg, and starts beating the shit out of it with it, and continues even after the game over screen. It never stops. It's just so beautiful to watch.
It's
all that done for the PlayStation.
It's even funny when you try to play Mortal Kombat Trilogy campaign as Goro, where they start to say, oh, they come up with some kind of, I don't even remember, but I do remember they come up with some kind of typical excuse. Oh, Goro was revived by insert person here to try to, you know, help defeat Shao Kahn or something.
They usually pull that kind of excuse.
So basically, it is really fun to get from Mortal Kombat Trilogy. In fact, I might just pick that one instead of the third game because just because of how hilarious it is to check out all of the bios of all the people that haven't
So what, is Mortal Kombat Trilogy like sort of a pseudo repackaging or remake of the first 3 games?
There we go.
That's the
Yay!
thing. Hold on, Joe, I'll get to you. Outstanding. Well, actually, it should be more like outstanding. You have defeated Shun Tsung. You are the supreme Mortal Kombat warrior!
Okay, now what?
After defeating Mighty Goro and putting an end to Shang Tsung's rule over the tournament, Kang is able to return the contest to its rightful hosts.
And that is...
There's only one L in life.
Let's see what they say. The Shaolin Temples. Kang's heroics will always be remembered. We will continue the traditions of the Shaolin Temples and restore the true pride and respect of this one. Yeah, the Elder Gods haven't been invented yet, so the Shaolin Temples for now.
Yes.
Okay, Mortal Kombat cast of characters. Daniel Pezina as Johnny Cage.
Yeah, so Johnny Cage got top billing.
Richard DeVizio as Kano. Carlos Pezina as Raiden. Ho Sung Pak as Liu Kang. I don't think he will come back for the games after this. Oh, it's Daniel Pezina. Oh, it's Daniel Pezina that did the ninjas. Never mind. Okay then. And yes, Daniel Pezina also did Reptile, if you want to know. Elizabeth Malecki as Sonya. There you go.
YMCA.
It's on to stay at the YMCA.
Goro character design by John Tobias, of course.
Cool.
Stop motion miniature by Kurt Chiarelli. Okay. And Ho Sung Pak as Shang Tsung.
Wow, he plays both the hero and the villain.
So here's the Mortal Kombat design team. Design and software, Ed Boon, of course. Design and graphics, John Tobias. Basically, they're the two, and music and sound design for those. The three primary, and John Vogel was also focusing on a lot of the behind the scenes stuff in Deadly Alliance. So I guess John Vogel can also be. But yeah, that was well. We'll actually have some more stuff to do, so we can save our final thoughts for later. But to answer Jova's question, no, that's the thing, Jova. Even though it's called Mortal Kombat Trilogy, it's actually not a repackaging of all the 3 games. You think it would be with that name, but it isn't. Instead, it's the story of Mortal Kombat 3, but with all characters that have ever been in the series up until that point. All of them playable, and they're all inserted into the storyline, even though they weren't even...
Think of it, Jova, as a special edition of Devil May Cry that allows you to play as Virgil for the entire story. There is only little to none story explanation, but it still allows you to do that.
So how different is it from the original Mortal Kombat 3? Like, you know...
No, it's basically...
use the dev team being impaled in the pit.
It's just the gameplay of Mortal Kombat 3. Ultimate actually. It's the gameplay of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 again, Jova. Again, it's basically the super special, awesome, all-in-one edition of.
Alright, there you go. You need to see that rocket on the moon, but I forgot. Even if you forgot, like, you need to be very lucky in finding that.
Hold on, I'll explain in a moment. The basic point is this: in order to quote unquote face Reptile, you need to be at the pit. You need to do a double flawless fatality. Sorry, a double flawless victory. Sorry, like so. You also need to. There you go. You also need to never block in this fight. You know. So basically,
oh boy.
So basically, it's all like that. And aside from that, you have to be lucky. Pray and hope that that Santa is going off with the moon. Oh, and you have to end the fight with a fatality as well.
Of course.
So those of you who managed to do all this incredibly specific set of circumstances that rely on luck, now you have found me. Now prove yourself.
This is literally one of those games that is responsible for the game sort of things.
The sad part is that, thanks to the cheats, I could have perfectly done this through my own recording, but like I've said, you have to expect the Santa, like Teo said, to be running across. Meaning you have to get lucky. It's pure luck. Okay, you want to have a very specific set of circumstances for facing Reptile. Okay, but can we please not have one of them be completely luck-based?
Why is his name regarded as Scorpion as well?
Because, Jova, this was before they gave him an actual proper name. That's the thing.
So he was just called Scorpion?
Green Scorpion.
Yeah, it was only later for Mortal Kombat 2 that they actually properly gave him a name and backstory. There we go. See, that's the thing. I was trying to see if I could find Reptile on my own recording, and there you go. You get 10 million points basically.
There you go. Now there's called reptile for some reason.
So through the battles and life of the situations faced during the tournament, Johnny Cage learns the true importance of his fighting skills. He also realizes the full potential of the tournament.
Good for him.
He returns to Hollywood after defending his new title as Grand Champion. Cage goes on to film Mortal Kombat the movie and its many successful sequels.
Yeah, one sequel.
With the defeat of Goro and Shang Tsung, Kano will bring his own brand of treachery to the tournament. His Black Dragon organization forms a monopoly over the contest. So this is Kano turning against Shang Tsung, basically.
It's typical behavior.
That brings shame and torment to all involved. Their reign will end in anarchy, and death will result in the final dismantling of the tournament and the Battle of the Sands.
Is an Undertale reference, son?
Raiden's victory comes as a surprise to him. He was never impressed by Shang Tsung's inferior sorcery, Goro's brute force, or the challenge of the other contestants. He quickly becomes bored with his mortal competition. Hold on. Hold on. And soon invites other gods to participate in the contest. The ensuing battles rage on for years, and the wars result in our world's final destruction. Have a nice day, because basically...
Well, screw you too.
So yeah, okay, hold on. Marked for death years ago by the Lin Kuei, Scorpion was murdered by Sub-Zero. He left behind a wife and child in his former life, but was allowed to return. Yeah, that's the story.
Awkward.
So there you go, Joe. But here's the story. That's the story we saw in the animated film. And avenge his death. Even with Scorpion's triumph in the tournament and new title as Grand Champion, the price he paid was high. He can never again know his family and must exist forever with his secret curse.
So is this better?
This was like in reverse, Jova.
Hold on. After receiving the title of Grand Champion, Sub-Zero disappears back into the shadows from which he came. His only goal in the tournament was... So let's see, what exactly was his motivation all along?
To get laid?
No. Assassination of Shang Tsung. He was paid a large sum of money by one of Tsung's wealthy enemies. With his mission accomplished, Sub-Zero will collect his fortune and retire from his dangerous profession.
Yay.
Oh, nice.
One last job.
Captured by Shang Tsung, Sun's Special Forces unit was taken hostage. Their only hope was the tournament. Shang Tsung promised to release the entire team.
I lied.
Only if Sonya could win the contest. Her victory would not only release their unit, but also put an end to the Black Dragon and Shang Tsung's powerful grip on the tournament.
Oh, so he actually did release them. Well, I thought he was going to go, I lied, and kill them anyway.
Well, she killed Shang Tsung as well, so... Alright, and now let me show you guys the fatalities. This is Cage's fatality.
Johnny's famous uppercut.
How is beheading someone going to help his career?
Rips your beating heart.
A career in horror movies, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
There you go, classic Sub-Zero, rips your head and entire spine or body.
I don't understand why they censored this fatality in Mortal Kombat 3, but whatever. There you go.
Sonya is the kiss of death, I guess. She can do that.
Well, she does plenty of fatalities like this anyway.
Yeah.
Alright, and Raiden just electrocute. There you go.
For the record, originally we actually wanted the actor to pronounce actual Japanese words, but they couldn't manage to digitize them properly, so we just told just speak gibberish.
Scorpion wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Yay.
I much prefer when when Shao Kahn is the announcer, because his voice is so perfect for this.
Yeah. But yeah, Joe, I remember in the new more recent stuff, like the movie,
his wife and kid get killed
as well as him. To create another layer of tragedy. But the moral is still the same. Being a revenant is condemned to not see them anymore.
The interesting thing about these endings is that... so what's the canon things we should take from onto Mortal Kombat 2, you might ask? Well, Liu Kang wins the tournament and defeats Shang Tsung and Goro. However, some of the material we just saw in these endings is also canon. Some of it. Sonya does indeed release her unit, thanks to Liu Kang. Johnny Cage goes indeed to become an even more successful Hollywood star. Kano, if I remember correctly, does he also get killed in this version too, like he does in the movie?
No, I think he returns later on.
Okay, never mind then. I know he returns in 3, but I don't remember if he's in 2. I don't think Kano is in Mortal Kombat 2 too, actually.
I don't remember that, sorry.
No, I don't know. Kano's not in Mortal Kombat 2. He only returns in 3. I don't remember what happens to Kano canonically, but yeah, he either escapes or dies, and even if he dies, he gets resurrected later. The most likely is case, because that's usually what Kano does anyway. He escaped from Sonya's pursuit, basically. Raiden. Okay, allow me to explain that Raiden ending, by the way. You see, everybody, you have to understand that this was before Ed Boon came up with actual Ed Boon and John Tobias came up with actual proper personalities for these characters. So that ending with Raiden was just done as a joke. But anyone who knows anything about Raiden knows that that's horribly out of character, because Raiden is the only super nice elder god in the series, because all the other ones are complete assholes.
Pretty much.
So Raiden would never do that. That you've seen that ending, because so that ending is completely non-canon. That didn't happen at all. In fact, this is the only time, at least that I'm aware, when it comes to retelling the first tournament, that Raiden was actually a competitor, because
others basically just tell the fact that he's there as a guidance, but he cannot directly intervene.
Is because he's an elder god.
Yes.
He does later do the same thing as in this game in Deadly Alliance. He even said he relinquishes his status as an elder god and immortality to help his friends in the 5th tournament. But canonically, Raiden wasn't even in this game gameplay wise. He was more there as a guide, basically. Let's just put it like that. And yeah, I know that what I'm saying right now is completely fucking confusing. But hey, what can I tell you? This was before. This is literally one of the worst cases of early installment weirdness, because they didn't plan ahead. Because here's the fun fact.
Kind of makes you wonder if that's why they soft rebooted stuff in 9.
It's a combination of things. By the time of Armageddon, the series had become kind of bloated, and the story had become almost a jumbled mess in terms of intertwining. So combine that with the original development team kind of disbanded, and Midway's act with bankruptcy, and then the Mortal Kombat franchise being acquired by Warner Bros. Ed Boon and the new founded NetherRealm Studios decided it was a good idea to just, pull a clean slate, just without forgetting everything.
Yeah. That since at the end of basically at the end of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, everybody fucking dies. It's Mortal Kombat, so
name.
Yeah, everybody dies, and we just go from there for 9. But anyway,
isn't Mortal Kombat Annihilation that one game everyone hates? Or
Annihilation, that's the second movie.
Annihilation is the second movie, lives.
I don't think you can play a movie.
Isn't Armageddon the one everyone hates?
I enjoyed it as just a very kind of like a throwback to the original Mortal Kombat trilogy, because just like
it also has the advantage that it's basically the Smash Bros. Ultimate of the franchise, because it includes at that point every single character that had showed up until that point.
Mortal Kombat trilogy. Mortal Kombat trilogy back in '97 was the Smash Ultimate for Mortal Kombat, and Armageddon was its successor by including literally every single character of the original timeline in one game, playable from the get-go. So basically think of Armageddon as a spiritual sequel to Mortal Kombat trilogy, basically.
I'm guessing if people hated it, it was probably for the story having that.
There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors involved, Jova. But the basic point is, Raiden, just pretend Raiden wasn't even here, aside from just providing moral support.
It's funny, that's kind of what the movie does.
As for Scorpion's ending is entirely canon, pretty much everything that you saw in that ending is exact. So
Sub-Zero's dead.
Yes. At least this is Sub-Zero.
This Sub-Zero is. Later on, classic Sub-Zero will return in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Because a lot of people apparently, basically when Mortal Kombat 3 came out, the new Sub-Zero without a mask was kind of I prefer the old Sub-Zero, and people brought him back as a I don't even remember too. Do they even establish if the two Sub-Zeros are different characters or not? in the
I
games?
think so.
Okay.
Wasn't it like, their brothers or
Yes,
something?
Bihan and the other, but again, it all in due time, Jova.
Okay, so the basic point of it is, the Scorpion's ending is completely canon, and that's about it, really. Like that's what you should get from this story-wise, basically. And I think I've said everything that I needed to say for this first game.
Well, question: from the fighters of this first game, which is your favorite?
Scorpion.
Cool.
Cliche answer, I know, but what can I tell you?
Oh, it's fine.
What about you, Tio?
Raiden. I just love his moves and his battlegrounds.
It's No, that's the interesting thing. Again, like I was saying, you can tell that they clearly didn't plan for any sequence, because Ed Boon even said this. A lot of people don't realize that this first game was meant to just be a quick project. They didn't even think that this would be that big of a deal. Little did they know that this fucking game would fucking explode in the arcade scene. So it was later, when they started Mortal Kombat 2, okay, we had to actually do some actual proper planning and actual Bible of characters this time, instead of just having Raiden suddenly destroy everything for no reason. So so it was with Mortal Kombat 2 that they started actually properly giving the characters proper personalities, as in Raiden is not supposed to destroy everything just for the shits and giggles, because he's supposed to be a good guy. So ignore his ending in the first game, please. But that's about it, really. So, final thoughts, Dwebs.
Well, I mean, it's got the typical first game stuff. Fortunately, for the looks of it, it manages to not have that much in the way of early installment weirdness. Just early installment. What's the word for not having a
Early installment weirdness?
It still counts as early installment weirdness, Dweebs. It just has different degrees.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, still, it's set a very good foundation for what the other games would do. Because it's like I said, the only Mortal Kombat game I've ever really played was, I can't even remember the name of it. It was one on PC, and all that I remember from that one is when you get a game over, you have 10 seconds while your character's falling down a narrow pit, and if you fail, he hits a spike bed and dies.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what game it was though.
All right.
Tio?
It's a classic staple of a couple of games. It's a bit generic as a statement, Jova.
It was a 90s one on PC, I know.
Anyway, let me go with my final thoughts then. It's, again, a classic. I didn't actually have the privilege of playing this on the arcade back in the day, but if I had, I definitely would have loved it. This is just, again, such unique in presentation, and the fact that it's the major Western-made fighting game. The digitization of the actors, the cheesiness, it feels like one of those B-rated movies that tries to, imitate Bruce Lee, spoof Bruce Lee movies. It includes a couple of staples from that. Liu Kang is clearly a Bruce Lee clone.
Which is interesting too, because considering this game was originally going to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme game.
Johnny Cage is the typical American, beef kind of guy that it's more similar in that case to Big Trouble in Little China, where you get the big American, but he's not really the protagonist, while instead the Asian guy is.
Mortal Kombat Gold, that was the one.
Oh God. But yeah, it's honestly I really enjoyed it, but it still suffers from those early installment weirdness. But honestly, it's for the better, because it showcased that there are great things to come. So stay tuned, Java.
It's good, classic, vintage gaming of the 90s here and there. It's an overall good game. For the story it has, it's relatively fun here and there. The animation technique is stellar for the time it was given here and there, and to have even a stop-motion figure on there does show that for what was meant to be just a little project, they did give it the necessary work and all that. Sure, some characters sort of clash with how they'll be in later games, but hey, what you gonna do about early installment weirdness? Overall, it's a good game and a good time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a classic for various reasons. This is one of the most influential games of all time, for good reasons. And to this day, it's still the franchise is still going, which shows how lasting of an endurance it did.
At the time of his recording, Warner Bros. Has released a statement. MK11 has sold more than 8 million units, which is also why they're continuing the support of it.
Yep. Now, Mortal Kombat is probably one of the select few franchises. Think of Mortal Kombat as probably the best equivalent the best Western equivalent that I can think to Dragon Quest, because much like Yuji Ori has been working, writing, and producing and sometimes directing all the Dragon Quest games ever since the first one, and still is doing it to this day, and is now working on the 12th one. Ed Boon, to this day, is still helming all the Mortal Kombat games. So I'm personally that's something that I can very much respect. We see so many creators get tired of their own creation. You know, Yuji Naka with Sonic, Naughty Dog with Jack and Daxter, you know, and stuff like that. Like, we see so many creators move, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a creator, you know, okay, I'm done working on this property and I want to move on to greener pastures. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that it's wrong for a creator to want to work on other things. Of course, that's fine. But at the same time, it makes it all the more rare and easier to appreciate a creator who is so passionate about his own creation that he decides to dedicate his entire career to it. You know,
it helps also when you know it's a series that is successful enough to sustain a career.
Well, yeah, Joe, but there's been creators that have abandoned their career even when those conditions apply, Joe. But sometimes it really is sometimes it really is just a case of a creator just getting a bit tired of just working on the same franchise for a long time, and he just wants to move on and do something else. Which again is something that's perfectly fine, and I respect that. There's we shouldn't force developers to work on something they don't want to anymore, because that's just bollocks.
Because it didn't have Yacht Club games.
Okay, so yeah, I have a lot of respect for Ed Boon for sticking with the franchise for as long as he had, and to this day, he's still, whenever you see him in interviews and stuff, he's still just as cheerful as he always has been. So he still has a lot of fun working on these games, and it's really cool. So I really respect Ed Boon for that, and for doing his best to take care of the franchise, make sure it's always high quality. So yeah, really cool. John. Tune in next time where we'll take a look at Mortal Kombat 2 and see which is, for all intents and purposes, the proper beginning of the Mortal Kombat timeline, or as we know it. So
pretty much.
All right. So see you then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.